everybody, this is Pastor Brady of the First Baptist Church of Gaston, and you are tuning in and listening to the Menorah Podcast. The Menorah Podcast is a ministry of the First Baptist Church of Gaston, located in the Midlands of South Carolina. The purpose of the Menorah Podcast is to share the light, speak the light, and send the light of Jesus Christ all across the airwaves of the internet. And I am here with our co-host, Alan Ott, as well as our junior associate pastor, Mr. Beamer. He is here. And so want to talk to you guys today. We're doing part 3 of something we've been doing for quite a while now. Like I said, this is episode 51 that we are doing here, and this is part 3 of our mini-series. We've been talking a lot about my 4-year anniversary, and we've been kind of dissecting that. Today is Thursday, February 13th. Really look forward to seeing you tomorrow at the Valentine's Banquet. So that's a good thing. I hope you've already signed up for that, turned in your money for that. I believe, and I might be wrong here, is it 6:30 tomorrow?
6:30.
6:30 tomorrow. Pastor Alan Bagwell from the Friendship Baptist Church in Lyman, South Carolina, is going to be our guest preacher tomorrow, and he's got a word from the Lord, and we're just super excited to have him. So Valentine's Banquet is always a lot of fun. Going to have some good food and some games, and hope you'll be here.
Yep, it's always a good time.
Yep, absolutely. So it's one of the only times a year outside of ordinations where Alan Ott wears a tie. So he did last year at least. So we'll see what you going to do this year, Al.
I haven't decided yet exactly how we're going to treat this year. I'm not a huge tie guy.
I know you're not. So last year when you pulled up with the tie, I was like, okay. And then the guest preacher was Ty Childers. So I was like, oh, man, what's going on? So Anyway, all right. Well, let's kind of recap. Last week we talked a little bit about 2021, and we dove into that and talked a lot about that, and you asked some good questions. And so kind of to go back through 2022. 2022 is kind of hard for me to remember as well. That was the first year that we did the Word of the Year, and that Word of the Year was together. I remember that. 2022 was a year of growth. I might be wrong here, but I'm thinking 44 people joined the church that year. And then 2023 was 59. I do know that. So a lot of baptisms in 2022. I think we did 6 new members classes that year. It was a big year for that. Really just a year of obviously growth. A lot of young families in 2022. That's really when the children's ministry really started to take off. I remember at the end of 21, we didn't get this last week, but we changed how, obviously in 2021, we did away with Sunday night services and we revolutionized Wednesday night worship services, which was a big deal. In other words, we did away with the traditional prayer meeting and we made it more like an actual sermon and service and all of that. And that really took off in 2022. That's one thing that really pops out in my mind about 2022 was Wednesday night worship services. That, those really grew and was a really great thing during that time.
Well, I think that's one of those ways that, and I can remember this very vividly when you and I talked about this the first time. I was like, I don't see that working very good.
About Sunday nights? Yeah.
The Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
Because
I remember
prayer
that.
is important.
Oh, yeah.
And we had, over the years, generally we had a long prayer time, and we talked about the needs, and people that had visited or people that had knew of the needs usually would expound on them, and we would have an extended prayer time, and then maybe 20, 25-minute devotion of some sort.
Yeah.
So that was really different for us, and I think now that we get on the other side of that, we see where this guy might not be as young as we thought.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, obviously we still have the prayer time, and that could change in the future. Because now, under the leadership of Susan Witten, we have a prayer meeting that happens every week, every Tuesday at noon. And a lot of those needs are brought there and are prayed for at least an hour. Sometimes they're here for 2 or 3. And so that has taken care of itself. But my thing with that was, I'll never forget, my first Wednesday night here, there were 8 people here. And they wanted to go through the prayer guide, and we went through the prayer guide, but it was like, and I'm not negating prayer by any means, but what I'm saying is it was like, well, my third cousin's wife's uncle's got hangnail or this or whatever. And that took a lot of time, and it's not that it was taking precedence over the word, but I knew with all these young families that were coming, and I knew with more to make Wednesday nights attractive, I wanted to preach the word. And I knew we weren't having Sunday nights anymore, and I wanted to try to do that. Our prayer time is a max 7 to 8 minutes now, and then we get in the word. And then, of course, we update people with prayer. But that's the thing, too. It also encourages people, I think, to take care of people outside of the church. And that's the other thing, not to only come on Wednesdays just to know who had a fall that week or
Right.
who was sick that week. Because we don't live in the day and age anymore where you can't update that with emails or phone calls or things like that. Because traditionally, that's why people would come to a prayer meeting, was for that. And
Yeah.
I felt like we were in a new era where we really needed to change that. And yeah, I was met with some resistance, but I think looking back, I think it was a really good decision to set up where we are right now.
Yeah. I agree with you. Sometimes it's hard to admit when you're wrong, and there'll be many of those as we go through life. But
Oh, yeah.
I think that turned out to be a really good thing for us. I think the involvement of the younger families and younger people, because face it, we're just getting older, and it's harder for us. I find it is very difficult for me to multitask.
So yeah, 2022 was great. A lot of great things. Obviously, of course, the yearly things, the Harvest Festival, VBS. A lot of that really started to pump up again. I believe Good News started back that year. I might be wrong on that, but
I believe you're right.
I think so, because I remember going in that little gym and hanging on the rim and on the basketball rim. And to give an example of how I've grown up a little bit, and Dwayne said, do not hang on that basketball rim because those kids are going to see you doing that and they're going to try to do that.
Yep.
I was like, oh, man, so anyway. But
Always set that good example.
yeah, and I had to learn that because, I'm 6'2", so I was like, well, I could get up there. That ain't a problem for me, but anyway. But so, yeah, 2022 was a good year. Just a lot of building and continuing to grow. And Sunday school really started to build back up that year. That was a good year for Sunday school because 21, the average was 67 or something like that.
Yeah, people had really gotten really gun shy of 10 people in a small room.
Yep.
And I believe our first Sunday schools were one or two classes.
Yeah.
We started out with a single class.
Yeah.
We actually streamed that
Yep.
live as it happened.
Yep.
And
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Because I'd never seen that before. So that was interesting.
we used a different teacher every week.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
depends on who taught that week. And we streamed it from the fellowship hall. So we saw some of that change. The other thing that we did that year was you led us in the biblical hermeneutics class.
Yep.
Really, I had heard the term before, but really
Yeah.
didn't know the depth
Yeah.
and the breadth of.
We took about 40 people through that. That was a really cool time. And what's really cool about it, and we'll get to this next week, but is it morphed into what discipleship groups is now.
Yeah.
Because I saw that there was that desire for something more, on Sunday afternoons. Not a service, not another sermon, but a teaching time, a discipleship time. And I had just taken that course in seminary, and I asked my professor if I could use his notes and curriculum in my church, and I asked him, and he said yes, so I did, and we started that, and that was really cool because I really got to know a lot of people through that. And what I mean by that is like, I knew where they lived, and I knew what they did for a living, I knew all that stuff, but I got to learn a little bit through hermeneutics about where they were spiritually.
Right.
And that was a big breakthrough in 2022. 2022, we baptized a lot of people. I don't remember how many. It was in the 20s that year. It was a lot, and I had never seen anything like that in a church, and I grew up in a church of 900 people. So to see that many people baptized in 1 year in our church, in our small community, that was amazing. That let me know God was onto something. God was doing something, and I was just blessed to be a part of it. That year, most people don't remember this, that year, 2022, in December, we voted that year to create the position of Associate Pastor and Minister of Families. And we'll get to that next week and how we called somebody in 23. But that's when we started the process. Also, 2022 is the year that we got Miss Velvet here. So Miss Velvet started in July of 2022. So she will celebrate her 3 years here in July. And so that was my first hire. Great hire. I couldn't be happier with that. Velvet does a great job and has been here since July. So in the early part of 2022, I remember meeting with our personnel committee at the time and writing her job description, going through the benefits, because her situation is totally different than that of me or Pastor Steve or any other minister.
Right.
Because hers is actually like a legit employee, not a minister.
Well, so often she is the first point of contact.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that person, I think a lot of times we discount that as long as that person makes our copies we want or whatever, our address labels or our name tags or whatever we ask her to do. But so oftentimes that person is the face
Mm-hmm.
that the public interfaces with first during the week, whether they're calling trying to sell the latest and greatest copier, or whether they have somebody that's in crisis that maybe needs some sort of help.
Yeah.
That's a very important role. And Velvet's kind of for many years we've had somebody within our church do that, and the last several years we've not been that way. And I think that was a conscious decision on part of the personnel committee. And I think Velvet knows enough about the community to stay up with things that may affect people within our congregation. But yet, she doesn't have to worship with us.
Yeah, and she worships down the road at Harmony at that great church. So that's kind of what comes to my mind about 22. It was kind of another year, and then 2023 exploded out of our minds. I never saw that coming, and so we'll talk a little bit about that next week. Alan, anything else before we go to 52 next week? This is 51, 52 next week. Anything on 2022?
Well, I think that about does it for 2022. Another good year.
Yep.
Of course, as we sit and talk now, we do have the benefit of knowing that the years are continuing to be about the same. So hopefully we can maintain this posture.
Yeah.
For a good long while.
Yep. Another good thing, so I don't get in trouble. Got married in 2022. So yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was really fun. That was really good.
Not that you need any added pressure as pastor.
Yeah, exactly. All righty. Well, thank you so much for listening in to episode 51 of the Menorah Podcast. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week for episode 52 as we talk about, I believe that's going to be part 3. 4, I don't know, but we will continue.
It'll be the next part.
Yes, it'll be the next part, and we'll talk about 2023. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week, guys.